As the sun began to set over Valdoria Palace, the state banquet was proceeding with carefully orchestrated elegance despite the crisis brewing behind the scenes. Foreign ambassadors, dignitaries, and members of high society mingled in the grand hall, unaware that the kingdom's most precious treasures had vanished just hours before. Queen Isabella moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her emerald gown complementing the smaller pieces of royal jewelry she wore instead of the missing items. To the casual observer, everything appeared normal, but those who knew her well could see the tension in her shoulders and the forced nature of her smile. Prince Alexander had returned from the Tower Museum with mixed news. The Queen Mother's crown was secure and could legally be used for his coronation, but the curator had noticed something troubling. Several people had inquired about the crown's schedule and security arrangements in recent weeks, asking detailed questions about when it might be moved or displayed. Princess Sophia stood near the orchestra platform, engaging in diplomatic conversation with the ambassador from Northland, but her mind was elsewhere. Something had been nagging at her since the meeting with her mother earlier. As she reviewed the events of the past few weeks, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Meanwhile, Captain Blackwood had made a breakthrough in his investigation. Elena Vasquez, the missing cleaning woman, had been tracked to a small apartment in the Old City district. When his team searched the location, they found it had been hastily abandoned, but several clues remained behind. "Sir, you need to see this," Deputy Captain Harrison said, holding up a photograph found hidden behind a loose floorboard. It showed the interior of the royal treasury, but, more specifically, it showed the exact positioning of security cameras and motion sensors. "This isn't a photograph that could have been taken during normal cleaning duties," Blackwood observed grimly. "Someone gave her access to areas she should never have seen, and at times when security protocols would have been active." The second piece of evidence was even more damning. A partial fingerprint on a water glass that didn't match Elena Vasquez's prints from her employment file. When run through the International Criminal Database, the prints belonged to Marcus Chun, a known art thief with connections to international smuggling rings. "This confirms it," Blackwood said into his secure radio. "We're dealing with professional criminals, not amateur opportunists. Alert all border crossings and airports. The Crown of Valdoria could be leaving the country within hours." Back at the banquet, Princess Sophia excused herself and slipped away to find her brother. She located Prince Alexander in the library, reviewing constitutional law books with renewed urgency. "Alexander, we need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "I think I know who's been helping the thieves." Her brother looked up sharply. "What do you mean? Think about it. Who has been asking detailed questions about security protocols lately? Who has been spending more time than usual in the treasury area? Who has access to information about when certain pieces would be displayed or moved?" Alexander frowned, following her logic. "You're suggesting someone on the inside. But we've already established that only a handful of people have the necessary access. What if it's not about the security codes?" Sophia asked. "What if someone has been providing information and access without realizing the full implications? Someone who trusts easily and doesn't always ask the right questions." Before Alexander could respond, Margaret Thornfield burst into the library, her face pale with urgency. "Your Highness, your Royal Highness, there's been a development. Captain Blackwood needs to speak with both of you immediately. He's discovered something about Lord Pemberton." They hurried to the Security Command Center, where Captain Blackwood was coordinating with multiple law enforcement agencies. When he saw the royal siblings, his expression was grave. "I'm afraid I have disturbing news about Lord Pemberton," he began. "We've discovered that his personal finances are in serious trouble. He's been gambling heavily for the past 2 years and owes substantial debts to some very dangerous people." Princess Sophia felt her heart sink. Lord Pemberton had been like an uncle to her throughout her childhood, always kind and supportive. The thought that financial desperation might have driven him to betray his lifelong loyalty was almost too painful to accept. "Furthermore," Blackwood continued, "we have surveillance footage from 2 weeks ago showing Lord Pemberton meeting with a woman matching Elena Vasquez's description in a cafe downtown. The meeting lasted over an hour." "Have you arrested him?" Alexander asked. "We've been unable to locate him. He left the palace shortly after our interview this afternoon, and hasn't been seen since. His butler Stevens says he received a phone call around 4 p.m. and immediately left without explanation. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the picture they revealed was heartbreaking. Lord Pemberton, faced with gambling debts that could have destroyed his reputation and possibly endangered his life, had been recruited by professional thieves who knew exactly how to exploit his vulnerability. "There's more," Blackwood added. "We believe the theft was timed to coincide with tonight's banquet for a specific reason. With so many foreign dignitaries present, security attention would be focused on guest protection rather than the treasury. Additionally, the thieves may be planning to use the banquet as cover for smuggling the jewels out of the country." Queen Isabella's voice came through the communication system. "Captain, I need you and the royal family in the Blue Room immediately. We have a situation." When they arrived at the Blue Room, they found Queen Isabella standing with a man they didn't recognize, a tall, well-dressed individual with cold gray eyes and an unsettling confidence. "Allow me to introduce Mr. Victor Reyes," the Queen said, her voice carefully controlled. "He claims to represent the people who have our crown jewels." Victor Reyes smiled with the practiced charm of someone accustomed to dangerous negotiations. "Your Majesties, I apologize for the dramatic circumstances of our meeting, but my clients wish to ensure they had your complete attention." "What do you want?" Prince Alexander demanded. "My clients are not motivated by money," Reyes replied smoothly. "They are political philosophers who believe that symbols of monarchy have no place in the modern world. However, they are also pragmatists. They're prepared to return your precious jewels in exchange for certain considerations." Captain Blackwood stepped forward. "What kind of considerations?" "A public announcement that the Kingdom of Valdoria will begin transitioning to a constitutional republic over the next 5 years. The royal family would retain ceremonial roles, but surrender actual governing power to elected representatives." The audacity of the demand left everyone momentarily speechless. Princess Sophia was the first to find her voice. "You're asking us to dismantle 1,000 years of constitutional monarchy because some terrorists don't approve of our system of government?" Reyes's expression never changed. "I'm offering you a choice. Your precious symbols of royal authority in exchange for acknowledging that real authority should rest with the people. Refuse, and the crown of Valdoria will be destroyed piece by piece, and the videos broadcast worldwide." Queen Isabella drew herself to her full height, every inch the monarch she had been born to be. "Mr. Reyes, you may tell your clients that the Kingdom of Valdoria does not negotiate with criminals. Our system of government has served our people well for centuries, and it will continue to do so long after you and your associates are forgotten." "I was hoping you might say that," Reyes replied, checking his watch. "You have until midnight to reconsider. After that, the dismantling begins with the Star of Valdoria diamond." As Reyes left under heavy guard, the royal family faced their greatest crisis in generations. They had 6 hours to either surrender their principles or watch centuries of history be destroyed by fanatics. "We need to find Lord Pemberton," Alexander said firmly. "He's the key to locating where they're holding the jewels." "I may know where he is," Princess Sophia said quietly. "When we were children, he used to take us to his family's old hunting lodge in the northern mountains when we wanted to escape palace life. If he's hiding somewhere, that would be the place." Captain Blackwood was already mobilizing a tactical team. "Your Highness, if you're right, we may be able to end this before midnight." As the search teams prepared to depart for the mountains, Queen Isabella made a difficult decision. The state banquet would continue as if nothing had happened. To evacuate or cancel would send a message of weakness that could destabilize not just Valdoria, but the entire region. The next few hours would determine whether the Kingdom of Valdoria would surrender to extremists or whether centuries of tradition and constitutional monarchy would survive their greatest test. In the northern mountains, Lord Pemberton sat in his family's hunting lodge, staring at the stolen crown of Valdoria, and wondering how a lifetime of loyal service had led him to this moment of ultimate betrayal. Outside, the sound of approaching helicopters suggested that his choices had finally run out. The final confrontation between the forces of tradition and revolution was about to begin, and the outcome would reshape the Kingdom of Valdoria forever. Captain Blackwood wasted no time implementing Queen Isabella's orders. Within an hour, he had established a command center in his private office, complete with detailed maps of the palace, personnel files, and security footage from the past week. His most trusted deputy, Captain Sarah Harrison, joined him to review the evidence. The security footage is the strangest part, Captain Harrison reported, spreading printouts across the desk. Look at this timeline. The motion sensors in the Treasury were triggered at 2:47 a.m., but the cameras show nothing unusual. Whoever did this knew exactly where every camera was positioned. Captain Blackwood studied the images carefully, or they had help from someone who designed our security system. Sarah, I want you to quietly investigate everyone who worked on the recent security upgrades. Check their financial records. Look for any unusual payments or debts. Meanwhile, in the east wing of the palace, Prince Alexander was in his study preparing for his upcoming coronation ceremony when his personal aide, James Whitmore, knocked urgently on the door. Your Royal Highness, your mother has requested your immediate presence in her private chambers. She says it's a matter of utmost importance. Prince Alexander looked up from the constitutional documents he had been reviewing. He was a tall, dignified man with dark hair and the same sharp green eyes as his mother. Unlike some royals, he had always taken his duties seriously, spending years studying law, diplomacy, and economics to prepare for his eventual role as king. Did she give any indication what this is about, James? He asked, closing the heavy leather-bound book. No, sir. But Captain Blackwood was seen entering her chambers with several security files. A feeling of unease settled in Alexander's stomach as he made his way through the palace corridors. His mother rarely called emergency meetings unless something serious was happening. His mind raced through recent events, wondering if there had been a security threat or a political crisis he wasn't aware of. In the Queen's private sitting room, Isabella paced nervously while Margaret organized documents on a mahogany desk. When Prince Alexander entered, he immediately noticed the tension in the room. "Mother, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Queen Isabella took a deep breath before speaking. "Alexander, I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Where were you last night between midnight and 4 a.m.? The prince looked genuinely confused. "I was in my chambers, reading and preparing notes for next week's parliamentary session." "Why do you ask? Were you alone? Can anyone verify this?" "James checked on me around 11 p.m., but after that, yes, I was alone." "Mother, you're frightening me. What's happened?" Before the Queen could answer, Princess Sophia entered the room. She was a striking woman with auburn hair and a warm smile that had made her beloved by the Valdorian people. Her involvement in numerous charities and her genuine concern for social issues had earned her respect both at home and abroad. "I was told you needed to see both Alexander and me urgently," she said. Then noticed the serious expressions on everyone's faces. "Has something terrible happened?" Queen Isabella gestured for both her children to sit down. "The crown of Valdoria and several other priceless pieces have been stolen from the royal treasury. The theft happened sometime between midnight and 3 a.m. last night." The color drained from both Prince Alexander's and Princess Sophia's faces. Alexander was the first to speak, his voice hollow with shock. "The crown of Valdoria? But that means my coronation cannot proceed according to law," the Queen finished grimly. "But that's not our only concern. Whoever stole these items had access to the highest levels of palace security. They knew our protocols intimately." Princess Sophia leaned forward, her expression serious. "Are you saying you suspect someone inside the palace?" "I'm saying that very few people have access to the security codes that would make such a theft possible. You both received emergency access codes last year." The implication hung in the air like a thundercloud. Prince Alexander stood up abruptly, his face flushing with indignation. "Mother, surely you don't suspect that Sophia or I would steal from our own family, from our own kingdom?" "I have to investigate every possibility, Alexander. The future of our monarchy depends on it." Princess Sophia remained calm, though her hands trembled slightly. "What do you need to know? I'll tell you anything that might help find the real thieves." "Where were you last night?" the Queen asked. "I attended the charity gala for Children's Hospital until about 10 p.m. Lady Catherine Pemberton can confirm that. After that, I returned to my chambers and spent the evening answering correspondence." I have emails timestamped until nearly midnight. The Queen made notes as her daughter spoke. Did either of you share your security codes with anyone? Even someone you trusted completely? Both siblings shook their heads emphatically. The codes are memorized, not written down anywhere, Alexander confirmed. And I've never told them to anyone, not even James. As the questioning continued, Captain Blackwood was conducting his own investigation in the lower levels of the palace. He had decided to start with Lord Pemberton, the treasury keeper, who had served the royal family for over 30 years. Lord Pemberton was a distinguished gentleman in his 60s with silver hair and impeccable manners. He had been one of Queen Isabella's father's most trusted advisors and had continued in that role when she assumed the throne. "This is absolutely devastating," Lord Pemberton said when Blackwood explained the situation. "Those pieces aren't just valuable, they're irreplaceable symbols of our nation's history. The crown of Valdoria especially. It's been in the royal collection since 1623. Lord Pemberton, I need to ask about your whereabouts last night," Blackwood said carefully. The older man looked genuinely surprised. "You suspect me, Captain? After 30 years of loyal service?" "I'm not suspecting anyone specifically, but I must account for everyone with access to the security codes." Lord Pemberton consulted his personal calendar. "I was at my club until about 11 p.m., playing bridge with Lord Hartwell, Sir Geoffrey Morris, and Judge Blackstone. After that, I returned home to my estate. My butler, Stevens, can confirm I arrived home before midnight." Blackwood made careful notes, then asked the question that had been troubling him most. "Lord Pemberton, have you noticed anything unusual lately? Any changes in routine, new staff members, or visitors asking unusual questions?" The treasury keeper paused thoughtfully. "Now that you mention it, there was something odd about 2 weeks ago. I caught one of the new cleaning staff in the treasury corridor after hours. She claimed she was lost, looking for the storage room for cleaning supplies. I reported it to Deputy Captain Harrison. This was new information." Blackwood felt his pulse quicken. "Do you remember the woman's name?" "Elena something. Elena Vasquez, I believe. She's been working here for about a month." Blackwood immediately radioed Deputy Captain Harrison. "Sarah, I need you to locate a cleaning staff member named Elena Vasquez immediately. Don't let her know she's being sought. Just find her current location." 20 minutes later, the response came back. "Edmund, we have a problem. Elena Vasquez didn't report for work today. According to the staff supervisor, she called in sick, but when we checked the address on her employment file, it's a vacant lot. The phone number goes to a disconnected line." The pieces were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was troubling. It appeared that someone had planted an infiltrator within the palace staff weeks before the theft. This suggested a level of planning and organization that went far beyond opportunistic criminals. Back in the Queen's chambers, the family meeting had grown more tense. Prince Alexander was struggling with the reality that his coronation might have to be postponed indefinitely. "There has to be something we can do," he said. "Surely the law allows for exceptions in cases of theft or loss." Margaret, who had been quietly researching constitutional precedents, looked up from her laptop. "Your Highness, there is one possibility. The law states that the crown of Valdoria must be used, but there's a provision for a substitute if the original is lost to forces beyond the crown's control." "What kind of substitute?" Queen Isabella asked. "The emergency coronation law allows for the use of the Queen Mother's crown, which was used for queen consorts rather than ruling monarchs. It's currently in the Tower Museum, not in the main treasury." This news brought the first smile to anyone's face since the crisis began. Princess Sophia squeezed her brother's hand supportively. "We should check immediately to make sure it's still there," the Queen ordered. Just then, Captain Blackwood's voice came through the Queen's secure communication device. "Your Majesty, we have a development. The theft appears to be connected to a planted infiltrator in the cleaning staff. We're tracking down leads now, but I recommend we consider the possibility that this is part of a larger conspiracy." The word conspiracy sent chills through everyone in the room. If the theft was indeed part of a broader plot against the royal family, they could be facing a threat much more serious than simple theft. Queen Isabella stood and walked to the window, looking out over the kingdom she had sworn to protect. The afternoon sun was beginning to lower in the sky, and in just a few hours, foreign dignitaries would be arriving for the state banquet. expecting to see the splendor and stability of the Valdorian monarchy on full display. "We proceed as planned," she announced firmly. "The state banquet will continue, and we will not show any signs of weakness or crisis. Alexander, I want you to personally verify that the Queen Mother's crown is secure in the Tower Museum. Sophia, help Margaret prepare alternative explanations for why certain pieces won't be displayed tonight." As the royal family dispersed to handle their respective tasks, none of them realized that the theft was indeed part of something much larger and more dangerous than they had imagined. In a safe house across the city, the stolen crown jewels sat in a secure vault while their captors finalized plans that would shake the kingdom of Valdoria to its very foundations. The evening was approaching, and with it would come revelations that would change everything the royal family thought they knew about loyalty, trust, and the price of wearing a crown. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of Valdoria Palace as Queen Isabella walked through the grand corridors toward the royal treasury. Her heels clicked rhythmically against the polished stone, echoing through the vast hallways adorned with portraits of her ancestors. She had ruled the kingdom of Valdoria for 15 years, and in all that time, she had never felt the weight of the crown more heavily than she did today. The Queen's personal secretary, Margaret Thornfield, hurried alongside her, clutching a leather portfolio filled with urgent documents. Margaret had served the royal family for over 2 decades and had never seen the Queen look so troubled. Dark circles shadowed Isabella's usually bright green eyes, and her normally perfect composure seemed to crack at the edges. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should postpone the treasury inspection," Margaret suggested gently. "The preparations for the state banquet require your immediate attention, and the ambassador from Northland arrives this afternoon." Queen Isabella shook her head firmly. "No, Margaret, this cannot wait any longer. If what I suspect is true, we may not have a kingdom left to host banquets in." They approached the heavily guarded entrance to the royal treasury, where 2 imposing guards stood at attention. Captain Edmund Blackwood, the head of royal security, emerged from the shadows. His weathered face bore the scars of many years protecting the royal family, and his sharp blue eyes missed nothing. He had requested this urgent meeting with the Queen, and his usual calm demeanor had been replaced by barely contained anxiety. "Your Majesty," Captain Blackwood bowed deeply. "Thank you for coming so quickly. I'm afraid the situation is far worse than we initially believed." The massive vault door, crafted from reinforced steel and adorned with the royal coat of arms, stood slightly ajar. This alone was unusual, as the treasury was only open during official ceremonies or inspections. The Queen felt her heart rate quicken as they stepped inside the temperature-controlled chamber. The royal treasury of Valdoria was legendary throughout the world. Generations of monarchs had accumulated treasures beyond imagination. Ancient crowns studded with rare gemstones, necklaces that had belonged to queens from centuries past, ceremonial swords with jeweled hilts, and artifacts dating back to the founding of the kingdom. The centerpiece of the collection was the crown of Valdoria, a magnificent piece crafted with over 2,800 diamonds and featuring the famous star of Valdoria, a rare blue diamond the size of a chicken egg. But as Queen Isabella's eyes swept across the display cases, her worst fears were confirmed. Where the crown of Valdoria should have sat in its place of honor, there was only an empty velvet cushion. Several other priceless pieces were missing as well: the Queen Mother's pearl necklace, the ceremonial sword of the first king, and the ancient royal scepter. "When was this discovered?" the Queen asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Captain Blackwood consulted his notes grimly. The night security guard noticed something was wrong during his 3 a.m. rounds. The motion sensors had been triggered, but the main alarm system never went off. By the time we conducted a full inventory this morning, we realized the extent of what was missing. Margaret gasped audibly as she saw the empty display cases. The missing items represented not just monetary value, but centuries of Valdorian history and tradition. Without the crown of Valdoria, the upcoming coronation of Prince Alexander, the Queen's eldest son, could not proceed according to ancient law. "How is this possible?" Queen Isabella demanded, her royal composure finally cracking. "This treasury has the most advanced security system in the world. Motion sensors, infrared cameras, pressure plates, and a team of guards who have been with us for years. Captain Blackwood's expression grew even more troubled. Your Majesty, that's what concerns me most. This was not the work of common thieves. Whoever did this had intimate knowledge of our security protocols. They knew exactly which sensors to avoid, how to disable specific camera feeds, and, most importantly, they had access to the master security codes. The implications of his words hung heavy in the air. An inside job. Someone within the palace walls, someone trusted with the kingdom's most precious secrets, had betrayed that trust. Have you questioned the security staff? The Queen asked. I've begun preliminary interviews, but, Your Majesty, I must be frank with you. The list of people with access to these codes is very short. It includes myself, Deputy Captain Harrison, Treasury Keeper Lord Pemberton, and... He hesitated. And who else, Captain? The Queen's voice was steel. Prince Alexander and Princess Sophia both have emergency access codes. They were given them last year as part of their preparation for future royal duties. Queen Isabella felt as though the floor had dropped out from beneath her. The thought that one of her own children could be involved in this theft was almost too horrible to contemplate. Prince Alexander, at 28, was next in line for the throne and had always shown dedication to his royal duties. Princess Sophia, 24, was beloved by the people and had never shown any interest in material wealth beyond what was necessary for her royal obligations. There must be another explanation, the Queen said firmly. My children would never betray their kingdom. Margaret cleared her throat nervously. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider that the codes could have been stolen or compromised without the prince and princess knowing. Captain Blackwood nodded. That's certainly possible. But we must also consider that someone might be trying to frame members of the royal family. The theft could be part of a larger plot to destabilize the monarchy. The Queen began to pace within the confines of the treasury, her mind racing through possibilities. The Kingdom of Valdoria had enjoyed peace and prosperity for decades, but she was well aware that there were always those who opposed the monarchy. Republican movements existed in neighboring countries, and there had been whispers of similar sentiments among some of Valdoria's own citizens. What about the insurance? Margaret asked practically. These pieces must be covered for tens of millions. The monetary value is the least of our concerns, Queen Isabella replied sharply. The crown of Valdoria has been used in every coronation for over 400 years. Without it, Alexander cannot be crowned according to the ancient laws of our kingdom. More importantly, if word of this theft reaches the public, it could shake the very foundations of people's faith in the monarchy. Captain Blackwood checked his watch. Your Majesty, we have perhaps 6 hours before the missing items will be noticed by the palace staff preparing for tonight's state banquet. The crown of Valdoria was scheduled to be displayed as part of the evening's ceremonies. The Queen stopped pacing and fixed him with a determined stare. Then, we have 6 hours to solve this crisis. I want you to quietly question everyone with access to the security codes. Use whatever resources you need, but be discreet. Margaret, cancel all of my appointments for the day. Tell them I'm dealing with urgent state business. And the state banquet, Your Majesty? Margaret asked. It will proceed as planned. We cannot afford to show any sign of weakness or crisis. If these jewels are not recovered by this evening, we'll have to find a way to explain their absence without causing panic. As they prepared to leave the treasury, Queen Isabella took one last look at the empty display cases. Somewhere in her kingdom, someone was sitting with the most precious symbols of Valdorian monarchy. Whether they were thieves seeking profit, political revolutionaries trying to destroy the royal family, or something even more sinister, she was determined to find them. The heavy vault door closed behind them with a resonating thud, sealing away the evidence of what could become the greatest crisis in the modern history of Valdoria. Queen Isabella knew that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of some priceless jewels, but possibly the future of her entire kingdom. The investigation was about to begin, and, with it, a journey that would test every relationship, challenge every assumption, and force the royal family to confront secrets they never knew existed within their own palace walls.